Welcome to the UI discussion. Welcome to the UI discussion party.
Now what the hell are you waiting for? What the hell are you waiting for? What the hell are you waiting for?
I am LT. As far as black culture is concerned, I do think that we have a way of being
make a distinction about a particular thing.
Unchanged. We have a society now where we're so-called free. Doesn't matter. Let me make sure he knows how to cook it up.
Well, my name is Chavez Rosenthal. And responsibility is a lot to do with system setup.
Patrick Irvin. And you start talking about rock and roll, like that's identified black in those times.
Welcome to the UI discussion party.
How you doing, everybody? We're going to join a UI discussion party already in progress for your UI experience of the evening. In the discussion, we had myself, we had Erica, we had Kenneth, and we had Maya. And we talked very deeply about the black church. And as always, we encourage you to have your own discussion parties and have your own discussions on these topics that we discuss and other topics that are relevant to you and your communities. So without further ado, go ahead and stay tuned, listen to it, leave your comments underneath it, share it, like it, distribute it, record it, do whatever you got to do, but get it out and make sure that you start having your own UI discussion parties, because you are us and we are you, the urban intellectual.
Unless you raising your own future husband, you ain't gonna never find a man.
Right. I say if you've never had a successful relationship, the issue is you, not everybody else. Mm-hmm.
But the church don't teach you that.
There's a big, of course, there's always differences in white folks and black folks, quote unquote, but that church thing is definitely different because I've been to black churches before. But this one, initially, the only reason why I went because they was quick in and quick out because they don't play. We out of there by 12:30, and I watch football on Sunday, so I can't be sitting in church till 5. So that's initially what's my. They out at 12:30. We can do this. But once we started going all the time and participating in what they were doing, it's excellent. I like to see them working, doing stuff. I like to see your works in action, however way they put it. But I like to see if you say you're going to do X, Y, Z, then it's getting done. If we're donating for whatever, it's getting done. This first church I've been to that they did a building fund in 6 months, and they started breaking ground 6 months later with whatever it is that they were building on.
That definitely was not. I mean, we go to we went to a white church when we first got to Greenville. We went by accident, though. We was looking for a church, and it was a real nice little building, and that probably should have been sign number one. But we went in. And when we walked in the door, like it was almost like the pastor stopped preaching and everybody just turned around and looked at us. And then as we scanned the room and we walked out a little bit further and turned around and we looked up into the balcony. Yes, the church had a balcony of more seats. We saw we were the only color in the room. And they waited for us to sit down. And then the pastor kept preaching. And the whole time, it was like a surreal experience. And he started talking about all this stuff, about Jesus being born in the cave, which my wife has been going to church her whole life. She never heard that Jesus was born in the cave. She's like, what the hell is he talking about? Jesus in a cave. So, and it was just a different experience. But they got in quick. They got out quick. I don't think they took collections at all. It was just crazy. Now, they did have an ATM machine out by the door. But
that's what I was at one of them.
It was just, I met a black pastor when I worked for the state, or a white pastor when I worked for the state of Florida, and he was the first person to tell me, to let me know that they were doing that at some white churches. He said, we don't pass around collection plate because we find out that we get more money if we just set up an ATM machine and put a collection box right next to it.
Well, Creflo, Creflo Dollar, and he dang near started that ATM business right there in front of the Assembly Hall. This one sits right there. But this church, they took offering, but it was really quick. Like one passed around. Most people have put their stuff in envelopes kind of quick and done with. But we were probably about the only black faces in the place too. But they didn't. I never saw them react any differently because we were. I was comfortable there. I never felt out of place or anything like that.
Me personally, I don't. Church is cool for fellowship purposes. Every now and then you need some motivation. I think that's what church is for. But largely, I treat churches like you treat a hospital. I go when I need spiritual treatment. If I don't need spiritual treatment, I don't go. People don't go to the hospital every week for a checkup. So why to me that breeds stagnation.
Stagnation in what?
Stagnation in spiritual development. I mean, for me, and this is purely coming from somebody that has spent the majority of his life going to a black church. For me, the churches give you a false high without really giving you anything tangible when you go. Like, they make you feel good, they make you feel excited, but basically you're excited about the energy that's in the room because all the pastor pretty much did is stand up there and cuss you out for 2 hours.
Yep.
You ain't...
That's interesting. I don't know how I see it is, and this is purely me. I don't know if that's the pastor's actual job to give you anything tangible. I think they give you the spiritual part, and you're supposed to go out and do what it is that you need to do with what they gave. Like, it's almost like when people go to motivational speakers, or you go to your favorite concert or whatever, and you're listening to the person that you like. So you listen to the music that might motivate you to go out and buy the CD or download the music or whatever once you leave. I look at pastors as that. I don't look at them as somebody who's going to give me something. I look at them as the motivation to do whatever. Give me the word that I need or word that I'm going to take in, and then I go about my life and do whatever it is that I need to do to experience that. And I said, that's coming from somebody who don't go to church. I don't even remember the last time I've been.
I bet you it's been since I've been. I don't think I've been to church in 30 years.
I just hold pastors more accountable than that because they're not supposed to be motivational. Like, a pastor is supposed to be a teacher, your spiritual guide. They help you develop and grow on your spiritual journey. If I want to be motivated, I'll go listen to somebody that's saying a bunch of bullshit over some fluffy music. But
they can't make you do anything. He can only tell you what's there. So how could he be more than the motivation?
But my thing is, they don't tell you what's there. The last time I went, most every time I'm going to a black church, this is what I, paraphrasing, of course, because they don't curse, but I do. You ain't shit without Jesus. Your life is fucked up because you live in it. You need to get out the driver's seat and let Jesus get in the driver's seat, and you just go along for the ride. You know why you ain't got that new car yet? Because you ain't asked Jesus for it. And if you have, you ain't asked Jesus right. And Jesus did. And you know why you're single? You're single because you refuse to put Jesus first. Once you marry yourself to God, God will provide you a man that you can have. Once you marry yourself to God, God will provide you the woman of your dreams, and you won't have to work for it. It'll all be perfect. Like, all of that is bullshit. And you basically telling me I don't have what I need because I'm trying? I need to stop trying?
Well, it's quite possible that you've been to the wrong church. Because I don't think all of them talk like that. so that might have something to do where you went and not necessarily the church itself. It might have something to do with the churches you went and visited. Because I couldn't stay for a conversation like that. I couldn't go to a church like that, and that's what they're talking about. But I don't think all of them are doing that.
No, I don't think all of them are.
You might need to expand your horizons. I go to the right church. Yeah.
That's why I started reading the Quran.
Well, I ain't going that far, but as I said, I was going to the right church, which I enjoyed. Just because it was, to me, it felt like we were getting things done. They were doing stuff for the community. They were doing whatever. It was relaxing. I didn't feel any pressure.
Right.
And nobody, they definitely wasn't sitting up there saying, you got it because you ain't apologized. You're not trying hard enough. You didn't listen to him.
I mean, I personally think everybody that has read the Bible should read the Quran. I mean, you really get to see that they both saying basically the exact same damn thing.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that.
Kenneth, the last time you went to church, what were they saying? Do you remember?
The last time I went to church that I can remember, now this don't count getting married and when people die and they come to the funeral and tell a bunch of lies. I mean, I'll forget what the sermon was about, but it was basically one of those, if you want to uplift your position in life, the first thing you got to do is kneel before Jesus, and that kind of struck me the wrong way. You see what I'm saying? Because I was always one of those ones that, I believe in self-determination. I believe that everything that you're going to get in your life is going to be by, the fruits of your own efforts. If your efforts is lacking, then your results is going to be lacking, And I don't think that I need to pray to somebody or being or an entity that I can't see in order for it to affect my material life. You see what I'm saying? But that seems to be, I'm like Patrick, that seems to be the message that we get from a lot of inner city churches, that things in the hood will turn around as soon as we believe hard enough in Jesus. And I know that's a generalization and that, a lot of churches are not like that, but the ones that's not like that, it's few and far between. You got multi-million-dollar preachers now that have gained that status by basically, extolling the material life and holding up as a shining beacon of inspiration that you don't need nothing in your life but Jesus, which is, to me, the biggest load of bullshit that we have ever been graced to hear in the black community. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I can't do church no more. But then again, on the other side of that coin, too, though, I don't do Juma for the very same reason. For those who don't know, Juma is like church for Muslims, for want of a better phrase. It's just done on Fridays. And I've seen that creeping, what's the word I'm looking for, rot, I guess is a good word for it. I've seen that creeping rot start to enter now the Muslim communities. Because you get Muslims that, like, for instance, for example, in Dallas, all of the quote-unquote black Muslims have Juma in South Dallas, The Muslims out here in the burbs are all Pakistanis, they Afghanis, they Saudis, or they're Iranians, and a lot of times the damn khutbah is in Arabic. And I speak a smattering of Arabic, but I'm not conversational in it. So we sitting here and we listening to the Juma and we playing with our thicker beads and we sitting there and brothers is nodding their heads and I'm sitting there and I don't know what the hell they could be talking about. Tonight we're going to take over America. I'm just there, I'm just there on film, just going for it. You know, that's so I do my thing at the house. You know.
Yeah, we you know, but it's just, I think when it comes to the black church, and that's why I said, you know, you going to that church is cool. I wish the black church had more churches like that, but unfortunately we don't. I mean, we just don't. Like it's flooded with passiveness and not doing nothing, and now it's become flooded with this whole concept that if you just accept Jesus, you don't have to do anything for yourself. You don't even have to change yourself. This whole idea that once you accept Jesus, you'll find a man and everything will be perfect. Like that shit is destructive on several different levels. Like that's a horrible teaching to have. They completely ignore whole chunks of the Bible. Like Psalms 128, which says you will eat the fruit of your labor. You know, you will eat the fruit of your labor. Or James 2:14, I think it is, it says, faith without works is dead. You know, all of these scriptures in the Bible that tell you that you need to get up and get out and do shit. Even if you go to the parable of Jesus, the man with the talents, the one man who didn't do shit with his talents, when the master came back, he took all of the goddamn shits from him and gave them to the man with 10. You know, but we just completely ignore all of these stories and parables and things like that in the Bible that are telling us, look, if you want more out of life, you have to do more. You got to put more into it. If you want a well-balanced relationship, you need to work on you, and y'all need to work on y'all. We don't, nowadays, and it's almost like it's like one of them seminars for a pyramid scheme when you go to church. It's almost like they just sitting up there telling you how much money you can make and how easy it'll be if you just do this. You know, that's I don't know what,
I have never heard that before in church. Not even when I was younger. To this day, I've never heard that before. So it's interesting. You know, I'm a little different.
Well, you got to also think of it like this too. They may not necessarily say it in those words, but the gist of the conversation comes down to that. They dress it up in all kinds of flowery language, but the basic tenet comes through
on the stove top. I've never even heard anything close to that. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, because I'm sure it does, based upon what you guys have said. And
girl, you better get it back.
Probably some things that I'll hear from others, but I've never heard that. I've never heard it from, like I said, even when I was younger, when my parents had us going all the time to me, myself now, who doesn't go often at all. But I've never heard that. And the only, I guess, known pastor that I know of that I would pay any attention to most of the time is probably T.D. Jakes. I listen to him every once in a while. But I've never even heard him say that.
I've heard T.D. Jakes say that.
I've heard him say it a few times.
I've heard him say that actually.
You heard him say that all you have to do is believe in Jesus and everything will be all right. And you don't have to do nothing else?
Basically.
In so many words, yes.
You know, you basically got to understand about T.D. Jakes and what's the fool up in Michigan? The one that had the doctor stalking him?
Just leave it there, okay. I'm talking about Marvin Sapp, but is he a preacher?
Yeah, he was a preacher. No, he was a singer. I take that back.
I'm sure he's a certified minister of some sort. I'm sure he might just not have a church or a congregation.
Right. And the thing about preachers like that is that you got to go all the way back to their early days. See, now they're politically correct. Now they tend to only say things that are non-threatening and non-controversial. You see what I'm saying? But if you go back when they was frying chicken in the basement, you know, every church Sunday ended up at the end with potato salad on the table. You know, there was totally different messages coming out of these people then. You know.
T.D. Jakes, I've known about him. Gosh, I was probably in middle school because my mother was heavy into him.
I've heard T.D. Jakes recently say, what was he talking about? He was basically saying certain people are better than certain other people, and God will give you your blessings according to your importance. Something or another he was saying like that. So he's basically saying if you make $100 million and somebody else only make $10 an hour, then while it is your responsibility to help the person that's only making $10 an hour, you have to get them to understand that God has given to you according to your value, and God has given to them according to their value, and everybody needs to accept that some people have more value than others. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, I can make that make sense on a bunch of different levels, but the fact that I have to make that make sense is an issue. And there are people sitting out in the audience talking about amen, and I can only imagine them going home or going somewhere, getting into an altercation and saying, well, God gave me this because I'm better than you. Well, how Christian of you?
I need y'all to send me these things.
Right? I've heard T.D. Jakes say some cool stuff too.
No. I just want to read or see or whatever the stuff that you're talking about. Because he had, I know that he gave this sermon before he was talking about 10-gallon people, and he said that some people are 10-gallon people and some people are just pint-sized people. And then he went on to say that you could be talking to someone or dealing with someone, and they are giving you all that they could possibly give you because all they know of is the 1 pint or the 10 pint. And you are a person who thinks on a 10-gallon scale. So while they are trying their best and they're giving you all that they can, there are times that you guys will not mesh because what he or she believes is full is not what you believe is full.
Even in that, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
My thing is, I don't like trying to say some people are bigger than other people or have bigger. Look, it's not that you're 10 gallons and I'm 3 gallons. It's that I do things this way and you do things that way. It's not that I don't have enough quote-unquote love to fill your love tank. It's that what I call love might not be what you call love. So it's not that I don't have enough fuel for you. It might just be that I don't have the right kind of fuels to get you going.
Right, but that is the point, though. You take it as him saying that he is saying that person is thinking as a 10 pint and you being a 10 gallon means that you think that person will never measure up to what it is. His mindset, and what I got, because it's a full sermon, but that's just a little part, was that, like you said, you might love somebody differently than how they need to be loved. And if you are dealing with a person who will never try to love you the way that you need to be loved, you guys will never be one. You'll never be connected. And it's a difference between somebody, if you're saying to somebody, this is the way I need to be loved, and that person is trying. They may not always get it right because they're different than you, but they're trying to love you in the way that you are telling them you need love. And if they are refusing to do that, they're refusing that altogether, you will never be together. It doesn't work.
Well, then, if that's his message, then why even say you might be a 10-gallon person dealing with a 5-gallon person? Like that, that analogy completely doesn't balance with that point.
I don't know. To me, I think it was telling you about the difference between two people. I don't think you could say this is a 10-gallon person, this is a 10-gallon person, and y'all just whatever. I guess you could. But I think his point was trying to see the difference between the two people because everybody's not the same. They're not. No matter as much as we want it to be, that everybody is the same and everybody can do the same thing and everybody has the ability to do the same thing, it's just not true. It is nice to say.
So here's my question then. How many people you think are going to walk out? And I think I've heard that clip before, I think. How many people do you think heard that clip and are going to walk out of there and start saying, well, I can't deal with you because you're a 10-gallon person and I'm a 50-gallon person and you can't fill me up no matter what you do?
It could be 15 people who said it, or it could be 15 million who said it. But to me, that makes no difference about who walks out and says what. It's about what you take as a message. Because that same person who was sitting there who was a 10-pint person is thinking, okay, I get it. I get that what she was trying to tell me was X, Y, Z, or I get what he was trying to tell me was X, Y, Z. You can only give the message what the message is. You got to people are going to feed it or take the perception of it anyway. To me, that message.
I don't know. I guess we'll disagree all day about this because I don't. Like I said, the whole analogy that you just, and maybe I need to hear the Sherman to really get it, but the whole analogy that you just presented to me of I can be a 50-gallon person and you can be a 25-gallon person, like that doesn't jive with my gas tank might only run on 87 or 89 and you provide an 87. Like that, those are two different analogies. My fuel tank might only run on diesel fuel and you got corn fuel. You know, those are two different analogies. One isn't saying that you're better than me or you have a higher capacity than me. It's just saying that what you offer is different from what I need. Meanwhile, the other one can be misconstrued as saying, well, you might offer what I need, but you don't have the ability to fill me up because you're not big enough.
Well, as like I said, I think I have it because I think I wrote something about it, so I'll send it to you. But his thing was pretty much about, because he didn't say that the 10-type people were less than. He said that the 10-type people are giving you everything that they can give you, but it's just who they are. They can't give you anything more. So while you were sitting there beating your head against the wall or fussing and cussing or whatever about this person not being able to give you what you need, it's possible that they can, and you just need to move on.
Kenneth, what do you think about it? I'm sorry, Jingwin. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's okay.
Kenneth, what do you think about this discussion? You quietly listening. Don't make me go to the board on you, Kenneth. I know you here.
Oh, my bad. I had my phone muted. Maybe that's why y'all ain't been listening to me when I say, hey, can I?
Yeah, we ain't heard you.
Anyway, this is the thing. By me not being a Christian, I really don't have a dog in that fight. You know what I mean? How they tend to tailor their message, or, how they tend to take a message and misconstrue it into something personal. Like you say, I would have a problem with that too. Telling people that there are different types of people, and different types of people have different types and different sizes, different capacity tanks, and that some people can't fill up the tank of other people. That's divisive to me. You see what I'm saying? I'm one of them type people that I believe that when you go to church, whatever your initial intentions on going to church is for, even if it's just on Easter and you're trying to show off your new suit, whatever you go to church for, you should always leave church with a message in your mind. And that message should be tailored toward something that's going to help you progress. One of the worst things that I ever watch is people go to church and come back from church and say, oh, yeah, the preacher got out today. He preached a hella message. You're like, okay, well, what did he say? Well, he read out the book of Timothy. Okay, but what did he say? I know what Timothy says. What did he say, and how did you internalize what he said? Oh, he said a bunch of stuff. That's the problem. He said a bunch of shit. But you don't remember none of it, so basically he ain't said a goddamn thing then.
Or they weren't paying attention. I don't know how that's the preacher's fault. I can see that it could be the preacher's fault, but I don't know how that's automatically the preacher's fault.
And that is true. A few of them
true.
might not have been paying attention, but if the majority of the people can't tell you, if you ask 100 people that went to the same sermon, only 10 of them really supposed to tell you, oh, man, I wasn't really paying attention, man, because Sister say they had on a tight skirt, you know. But when you start talking around 50, 60, 70% of the people who went either got the wrong idea from the sermon, got differing ideas from the sermon, or can't remember what the sermon was about, there's a problem with the delivery, not with the reception.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree with that. It's different. But I've had people, I recently was having a conversation with somebody, I can't remember what it was, but we were talking about churches as well. And I've read something, I think Essence Magazine did an expose on the black churches. It's been a couple of years ago. And what I remember reading is one of the members of Buffalo Dollar's church said that she has never actually met him. And I said, I got a problem with that. People say, well, he's got all these members, you can't talk to me and everybody. I said, well, as much as they give to the church and as much as they're there and promoting his church, he should stand at the door and be able to shake every last person's hand as they're coming out. I personally couldn't go to a church where I've never talked to the pastor before. Never had a hello, how you doing, nothing before. I couldn't go to the church. But,
You're talking about mega church levels there. I personally don't like mega churches. I don't like anybody's mega church. T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteen. It doesn't matter whose mega church it is. I personally don't care for anybody's mega church. But I will go to a church, and most of the churches in the black community in particular are real small churches. They're like smaller than your local corner store. They got maybe like 25, 30 members that show up on a regular basis. And those are the small little institutions that are really driving the culture, and those are the places that I find myself frequenting because I want to know what these people are getting. Because these are the, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the mega churches. At some point, you get so big that you become an entity that exists outside of the culture. Like, you're no longer inside the culture. You no longer drive the culture. You're just so big that you exist outside of it. And I think, like, a T.D. Jakes, his church, is a church that, in my opinion, exists outside of black culture in a sense. T.D. Jakes doesn't really drive or have as much power in the local black community as the local black church leader does. I mean, he just doesn't. I know so many young kids nowadays that don't even know who T.D. Jakes is. I've met a few of them down there in Florida that thought T.D. Jakes was dead and marched in the Civil Rights Movement with Martin Luther King. Go figure. But when we talk about the small churches, I think that's where we can really go to really get an idea. And those are the churches where I normally find the pastors preaching those messages about Jesus, 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 Jesus. Like, it's basically they just get up, they say Jesus about 300,000 times, and then everybody goes home. You know, they say Jesus, then they say Mark and Paul, then they say Jesus about 10 more times, then they say something about Psalms and Proverbs, then they say God, then they say Jesus about 15 more times, then they start alternating between God and Jesus for the next 30, 45 minutes, and then everybody go home.
So is your goal is your conclusion is that you just don't like church and you don't really see a benefit for it? Or a benefit?
No, I see, right. It's not that I don't like church. I do like to go. I do like the experience. I like the feeling. Because if you go to a church and the pastor is a real showman, like they're being trained to be nowadays in seminary schools, if the pastor is a real showman, like, that's better than a concert, and it's cheaper. You know.
So why would you go for that reason?
That's the only real benefit to a church. I won't say to a church. That's the only real benefit to most churches that I've been to nowadays is the entertainment aspect. And I've been to several churches. I can name a church in Tallahassee, Florida right now that has around 4,000 or 5,000 members. It's real popular amongst the youth. The pastor gets up there. He doesn't allow women to preach at the church. He doesn't allow women to have any sort of leadership position. He's a young pastor, but he gets up there and he basically raps every Sunday. And it's like a concert. And when you talk to the people, they say, why'd you go? Man, I just go to see the pastor show out. Or you have a girl saying, I just go to see the pastor because he's so fine. You know, or this, that, and the third. So it's become like a mock concert for the community. It's free. And you go, you get entertained. Occasionally you get fed. You get to feel like you're a part of something. And then you go home. As far as any real teaching, any real training, any real institution building, there's none of that. None of that. And I think the church can be tremendously beneficial. And I'm not an advocate for throwing away the church. The church can be huge. I just think it needs to be restructured. It needs to be repurposed. It needs to go back to what it was originally designed to do.
For sure.
I think that, I don't know, I think it sounds as if your, and maybe even to a certain extent, your impression of church is already negative. So anything that's outside of that can only be viewed. And I know that negativity is based upon your experiences. It's not just talk. And like I said, I'm not somebody who goes to church all the time. I cannot say that's how I feel. But I see some benefits in it that has nothing to do, for me, has nothing to do with the wealth doctrine or nothing to do with that. You got to, do it because Jesus said, and your life will not be well unless you do it according to his will and way. It has nothing to do with that. But I think, I don't know, it seems a certain segments of our society, when I say our black folks, certain segments of them are already against it. They're just church. So even if you give them examples of something that may be working or something that's doing well, their response to that was like, but that's just outside of the norm. So I don't even know what you just said about that. I'm just going to focus on what I know.
Well, I don't want to give any. I do feel how I feel about the church, and also to just to make another point. I was in training at one point to be a pastor. So I do feel how I feel about the church, but I do acknowledge that there are good churches out there. I've been to a few. Now, the vast majority of the churches I go to are foolishness, but I have been to a few good churches, and I have kept up with the pastors, and when I do make donations to churches, those are the churches that I donate to. And I don't think the church is useless. Like I said, I don't feel like it doesn't have any value. I just feel like as a group, and this is all just based off my experiences and the limited amount of research I've done. But I just don't really feel like churches, and I'm speaking in general here, have any real advantage for black people the way they're currently set up and run. I mean, some of the most poverty-stricken neighborhoods in the community and some of the worst communities I've ever been in have a church on the corner. And they have people that go to that church. When something happens, the church light is on, the people are inside praying, they're collecting, they're making donations, and the only person with lights on in the community is the pastor. The only person with a working current year model car is the pastor. So if and this might be a statistic for us to look into, but how many of the poorest, what's the correlation between poverty in the community and the amount of churches present in that community? Is there a correlation, and what is it?
I would think that it would be large because most communities, especially southern states, have churches on dang near every corner. So the numbers are going to be skewed based upon that because you're going to have an overwhelming amount of churches versus people, regardless. I don't know, like, further up north how that goes, but as far as down south, there's churches on every corner.
Well, I do know that, the converse to that whole argument is that there are so many churches because those are the people who need church the most. The only real advantage I see to churches right now in the black community is the megaphone effect. That if a message needs to get out, then that is the most convenient way outside of social media. That is the most convenient way to make sure that message reaches the maximum amount of people that it needs to reach. But the problem is not necessarily that. The problem is, what is the message that's being taken? The message that's being put out right now amongst most, I won't even say most, but amongst many churches, it just happens to seem like the most because it's what we hear, is the rampant materialism. The whole Jesus don't want you to be poor paradigm, and okay, I can get with that to a certain extent, but everybody can't be rich. Everybody's not going to be rich. That's just not how the system works. You see what I'm saying? Somebody got to flip the burgers. Somebody got to cut the grass. And traditionally, those are not really high-paying jobs, no matter how much you may want it. You see what I'm saying? No matter how diligent you may be at your job, those jobs just don't pay. Hush. Hush. Goodbye. Interrupted by a kid. But in any event, what ends up happening is that megaphone effect is then used for normal carnal desires. Finding a good mate, making sure that you make the most out of your material life, getting ready for the next stage in your existence and the pearly gates. And I think Erica said it earlier in the other show, the streets of gold, and if you're a Muslim, the 7 virgins, and, all that stuff, and, and that sound good. But once you leave church on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, Monday morning in some cases, once you leave church, how does that translate into you and your life improving? And that's what the issue should be. Based upon your track record, based upon the track record of the number of churches that's in the black community, where is the improvement?
Right.
And if there's, it's like when the car was invented, all those people that made horses and, carriages for horse and buggies, they was out of a job because there is no demand for that. What they made, it doesn't translate into results as far as sales is concerned. Same thing with a church. If your church is consistently in the poorest neighborhoods, or if your faith is consistently in the poorest neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods are not improving, then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution.
And that's part of my whole problem with the church, and why, we know the correlation statistics are going to show that there are more churches in poor neighborhoods. But here's my kick with that is when schools in poor neighborhoods aren't doing what they're supposed to do as far as educating the people in those communities, we don't attack the communities. We attack the schools and say they need to be shut down, they need to be repurposed, they need more money. Like, we direct our attention to the schools when they're not doing what they're supposed to do as far as developing the community. With black churches, even though they're flooded in the highest poverty areas, never do we say we really need to look at these churches. We always say the problem is we don't go to church enough. Well, maybe we do go to church enough, but the reason why your church only has 20 members is because there's only 60 people in the community and you got 4 churches on the corner. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe some of y'all need to shut down y'all churches so we can get a more concentrated message. Maybe some of y'all need to change your message. We never look at the church itself as a source of what's happening in the community. We always just assume, well, it can't be the church, it has to be the people. And that's that's where a lot of my negativity in terms of the church stems from, in terms of how black people deal with the church as an institution. It's never the church's fault. Any other institution that's in the black community and that is not doing what the black community needs it to do, people attack. I mean, we're seeing schools being attacked left and right, to the point now where we have organizations like UIDP that are trying to develop entirely new curriculums because the old ones aren't working. Nobody wants to develop a new curriculum for the churches, though. Nobody wants to take that approach to sit the pastors down and say, look, for the last 40 years, y'all been on some bullshit. We need to get this straightened out, because you got members in your church that's been going there for 20 years and they still in the same place spiritually that they was when they first walked through the door. Now, if it was one or two, we say bad member. If it's your whole flock, we say bad church.
That's for sure.
So what is it that y'all think church should be doing?
Some of the things you mentioned that other church was doing, which I actually might go to that church, which you mentioned in that. But go ahead, Kenneth. I'm sorry.
Preaching about development. Not only personal development, but cultural development, societal development, you know.
Okay, I'm listening.
I mean, I know it might have been your experience that that's what the churches that you've been to do, but we're not talking about in general, or we're not talking about in specific, we're talking about in general.
Well, now, I'm not even talking about specific with that. My question is, if most of us, quote unquote us, have not been to churches or only been to a limited few, how do we know what specific churches are doing? How do we know that this one is not saying this and this one's not saying that? Because it can't possibly, I don't know if we can speak in generals with that, just saying, well, that community's not doing well, so that church must not be doing anything. So well, I don't know. And I don't really put churches and schools in the same category, because one, it's kind of, well, I won't say it's mandatory, but I just don't put them in the same. I think it's two things, because church is kind of like a voluntary thing. It's not for me, it's not something you would call it an institution. I don't necessarily see it as an institution.
Oh, well, I guess that's where we differ. I see the church as an institution because I see the church offering a set of services that kids don't get in school. When you talk about spiritual development, which I'm heavy in, when you talk about personal development and growth, which I'm heavy in, school will provide you with the education and the basic knowledge that you need to be successful, but it won't provide you with the information and the basic knowledge you need to feel connected and to be happy with your place and to, you know what I'm saying, to grow into something more. I think all of that is largely rooted in spiritual development. Now, obviously, there are plenty of people that aren't spiritual at all that have attained things, but, you know, my research anyways has shown me that those people are largely anomalies. They're largely outliers. So I see the church as an institution, and as an institution, I hold it in the same category that I hold other institutions like schools and businesses that have been staples for so long that they might as well be institutions, and other social programs that have been staples for so long that they might as well be institutions. So in my opinion, the church should be teaching. It should be augmenting the education you get in school, which means if your kid needs a tutor and they can't get one from school, they should be able to get one from the church. They should be offering. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, they should be offering any type of skills development programs for people that have been ostracized from the society, which largely, large chunks of the black community have been via, you know, felony records or whatever other circumstances they might have. The churches should be safe havens for those places. And even deeper, the church should be an institution where people can learn about spiritual growth and development. They can be motivated, but deeper than being motivated, they can be empowered, meaning they know how to maneuver in the system, because there's some things the school just isn't going to be able to teach you about America just because it's a school. Those things you can get from church. The conversations we have about race relations and all those other things, you aren't going to get those in school. Those are things that you, even if you could get them in school, would be more beneficial if they were had from the church, because the church is largely attended by, supported by, and a representation of the community. And those need to be community-level discussions. So I think all those things and more.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
No, I just don't see that as church. I don't see church in that way. I see church as you go, that's where you're going to have your fellowship because you believe in God and y'all are going in to get your fellowship, connect with one another, and then you go on out the door and learn. I do believe that you learn something. You take the message from that sermon that day and actually take the message and not just there to be there, and then you use that in your life to continue on. I don't see churches as places for that. Could they participate? Yeah, but I don't see them as that.
But that's because that's what church has become. When church was instrumental, and maybe I'm living in the past, maybe I do need to come forward. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. But when church was a real force in the black community, it was more than just a Sunday school concert. It was like real. It was integral. It was the voice of the community. Preachers had... I'm sorry, go ahead.
But isn't that because the people who were attending were actually people who wanted something to happen? I don't think you have a lot of churches that have that. You have people, and most of the time in churches, you have those elders and people there that believe deeply in the church. But for the most part, most of the people that go, they just go there for that spiritual time frame between whatever time, and then they go on about their life. I don't think as much as we want to embrace what used to be, I don't think we're in that time anymore. And I don't think you're going to be able to get people back to that either, because life is different and the people involved are different. I think sometimes you have to meet people where they are. And I don't think you might find some people who are heavy in church, but the ones who are heavy there are only going to take the messages in which they get. They're not going to take the message that you're saying. I don't think you use church for that. I think that the things that you want to happen is something that an outside organization would do. And outside, I mean something we create ourselves. But I don't think you can wait for the church, not even wait for the church, but not even expect them to do that.
Well, you're 100% right in everything you just said, and I can't do nothing but listen and take it in, because like I said, that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. But in a sense, like I said, I used to be in training to be a pastor. A mentorship, I was in a mentorship, used to go to all of the meetings, learned a lot about the doctrines, the preacher's Bible, everything short of actually signing up for seminary school and attending. But what I saw there, and the peers that were mentoring with me, where we had the different meetings where the mentees would get together and we would just talk and blah, 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 was I saw a different group, a different breed of pastors coming up. And even now when the pastors I talk to, they're a different breed of pastors. Some of them are just in it because they couldn't get a job anywhere else and they were real good at talking. So they opened a church. Some of them, and as hard and untrue as that might sound, these are some real life conversations I've had with people that are currently pastors as to why they opened the church. I've had conversations with pastors that are unaware of what's going on in the black community. So I don't think it's so much a difference in the members. I think it's a difference in the pastors. And it's still, at the end of the day, it yields the same result, because the pastors are the gatekeepers. And it's even more difficult to maneuver a stubborn pastor than it is to maneuver stubborn members. So at the end of the day, regardless of what's going on and where the switches happen, you're still 100% right in that it might be, and it probably is, and that institution that provides all those services that people used to get from the church. So you might be 100% right on that. I can't even.
Oh, and
I have no counter argument.
I agree too. I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. You know, it basically comes down to getting people what they want. And if the people want a concert, that's what they will continue to get. The only way to show the leadership of the church that that is not what you want is to basically stop going. Then it'll change. But as long as they pack the house like a good concert, they're going to give the people what they want.
But we have stopped going.
Yeah. Yeah, some of us have.
Black church membership is down.
You know, and then there's the traditionalist, you know, side as well. You know, a lot of people go to church just for tradition. Now, my great grandmama made me go to church. I go. You gonna go to church? For what?
That's true, Kenneth, because I think a lot of people do go. I call them they're Christians by default. They go and they claim they're Christians. They don't act like Christians, but they claim they're Christians because, like you said, it's a tradition. And then they make them feel good about themselves. If they're in public and they get to say they're Christians, people automatically think they're good people because they're Christians.
And so, of course, you know, the conversation continued along those same lines, and we covered a couple different topics as we carried on. But the moral of the story is, people, we need to have these conversations more often. We need to go deep. We need to really question why we believe what we believe, why we think what we think, why we do the things that we do, why we behave the way that we behave. We need to really begin to have a real deep, critical discussions about everything that goes on in the world today. So, you know, we hope you enjoyed this discussion we had about religion. Obviously, the discussion carried on. It started before and it carried on after. And hopefully, you'll start your own discussions that'll carry on after this one. And maybe you'll even record some of those and share those with other people. We have to get into the habit of discussing and questioning things. And we need to be brave enough to expose our beliefs to other people and open ourselves up for criticism. It's the only way to move forward as a people. So this has been another UI experience, and we hope to see you next time.